What's up, everyone? The Godly One here. I wanted to make a video on counterpicking, specifically in the top lane. But you can use this process for any lane, granted, or like even jungle. Granted, I don't think it's going to be quite as useful in a lot of scenarios. Like one tricking is more of a thing, and like bot lane, mid lane, jungle, it just is. But top lane is a whole other thing, and I think it's important to touch on this topic because a lot of people think like you should just one trick to victory, and you can probably still definitely one trick one champion. And by the way, I'm not like completely against the concept. I actually am kind of going to talk about that even for a top lane, but it's kind of like in a different way. It's not just like you play this one champion all the time. But there's a lot. You do need a little bit more versatility. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to share my desktop screen for you, and I'm going to go through what it is that I've done here. I hope most of this is legible. I'm just going to increase my screen size here. So right here, I've created a list of 65 potential matchups you could have in the top lane, right? Um, I want to say there's like 168 League of Legends champions. I didn't put them all up there because some champions literally make no sense to roll top lane. And I think that a lot of like all of these champions at least have like some sort of thing that they do top lane that I think is relevant enough to have them on this list. Okay. Now, I can always extend this list further. I mean, you could always put all 168 champions up here, but it's like, why would I have Yumi up here? I mean, are you really going to ever see Ezreal up here? Maybe. I don't know. I didn't put a lot of ADCs up here because it's like they're all just countered by Malphite for the most part. So, anyway, let's just go through here. And first and foremost, like, this is a counter pick guide. So, you first need to have a champion pool. This is a pretty big champion pool, I'll admit. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 champs right here. And there's a few champions like I'm definitely really solid with. Like I'm very good with Kled. I'm very good with Alawi, Mundo, Fiora, Mordekaiser, Jax, Cassiopeia, right? I could definitely. Oh, and Kale. I mean, I am very good with a lot of these champions. I also do know how to play Urgot. He's not that hard to play. Malphite, again, pretty simple, straightforward how to play. Tryndamere, I played a lot of Tryndamere in my time, so I'm not like completely against, playing him. Olaf, like I've played a lot of Olaf in my time, so like I know how to play this champion. The only champion on this list that I haven't given like full undivided attention to at some point in my play. By the way, I've been playing since season 2 if anybody's wondering. So like I definitely know how to play like all of those champs. The only one here that like I haven't given a ton of time to is Vladimir. But still, he has some pretty important counterable matchups, and I think I have what it takes to play a pretty solid Vladimir. So I will use him from time to time, and probably practice him on my alternates and stuff just to kind of get a hang of him. Anyway, so how does this list work? So essentially, you'll be red side more than likely in the champion select, and then somebody will pick one of these champions. And then over here, I have a main pick, and I have like a secondary pick to that in case like maybe they banned my main pick. And maybe they would ban like maybe your secondary pick gets banned as well, but it's pretty unlikely. Now, I have some of these where like I have like a plus sign to it. What that means is like they definitely counter this champion. Like it's like pretty much it's like a 53.5% win rate or higher against said enemy champion, with that pick. So like here Malphite against Aatrox has like over a 53% win rate against Aatrox. And I'm pulling all of this data from a website called Lolalytics, just so you're aware of how I did this. Go here and go to Aatrox, right? And then you scroll down and then you obviously make sure you click the top. In this scenario, Aatrox is played top. Weak against. You'll see here it says Nefiri is his biggest counter, but then right after that is Malphite. Again, he loses to Malphite 46.62% of the time. If you flip the board, you would just say Malphite wins 53 point what is it? 38% of the time, 53.38% of the time. So, Malphite is a counter. Now, I also put like their biggest counters over here on the right. So like the best overall counter spot on this list. It's like, these are champions that like are said to counter them perfectly, essentially, or like they're their hardest counter, but like I don't play all of these champions, right? Especially in the top lane. So I'm not using all of it. I'm just using parts of Lawlytics list. So I'm getting all of this information from Lawlytics. If I have like a plus plus here, it means this champion wins like 57% of the time, meaning it's like a hard counter, like a pretty damn hard counter. Pardon my French there. If it's a plus plus plus, that essentially means they win like over 60% of the time, like 63, 65% of the time, like a pretty ridiculous counter. If it was like a plus 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 plus, which I have like, I don't know. Here's like a quadruple plus. If somebody plays Victor top lane, Olaf just like crushes him. Like it's just out of the ballpark, like crushed. So anyway, essentially like anytime you have a plus sign, you should be thinking I should be pressuring the lane. Like I definitely should win this matchup like 9 times out of 10. Maybe with like a plus sign, maybe like eight times out of 10, two pluses like 9 times, and then plus plus, like it should be like 100%. I mean, they should all be 100% of the time, in my opinion, especially the way that I play. But anyway, secondary pick, all the other champions. Now, there are a few matchups here where I have like a minus sign here. So like against Kled, for instance, like Fiora's a counter. And then I have Malphite on here as a minus sign. That's saying that even though I'm using this as my personal counter pick, that champion actually does have a negative win rate against said champion, but it's not by a lot in this particular instance. So, yeah. Now, so essentially, I'll be using this for my counter picking from now on. This way, I could just go to this Excel document, look at it, for my counter pick, good to go. I don't have to like look up Lawlytics, every single time. What am I weak against? Like, what am I strong against? Like, update the list every once in a while, make sure I'm good. Now, this is the champ pool I'm using. I'm not saying you have to use this champ pool. You can make a whole other champion pool that you think is good. Like a lot of champions I see here that are good. We got Nefiri, we got Quinn, we got Singed. I see Maokai popping up on here sometimes. So like those would be some other champions, maybe Pantheon here and there. So a lot of these champions are countered by kind of like 4 other champions. Oh, Camille's a pretty good one too. So like 5 other champions. Like if I wanted to expand my champion pool, I could see maybe diving into a few more. So now what this says is so this is an interesting stat that I put together, which is negative win rate matchups. What that means is like if I go and I look up Urgot on Lawlytics here, I want to play Urgot top. I'm going to go to weak against. He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 potential weak matchups where he would lose. Let's say if I first picked, right? So essentially, like, is he a first pick worthy champion? And now I'm kind of getting into what I was sort of talking about at the beginning of the video, where you have people who like to one trick. When you're on blue side, you typically will first pick your champion before the enemy does. You'll typically not get to counter your top laner. If you're red side, you can definitely ask to swap to get to the bottom of the screen so you can counter like 100% of the time. You know, some people won't trade you that role, but I think most people understand that you should trade the top laner that role. Um, but if you're blue side, you're more than likely going to have to first pick a champion. So this is where you kind of get into what champion should I first pick? Like, what champion should I play? Like, if I have to first pick. Um, in this scenario, it's for me telling me Kled and Olaf. Now, I'm probably just going to play Kled because I'm really, really, really good with Kled. I also like playing Kled a little bit more than I like playing Olaf. I do like Olaf. It might be nice to like go on a run just playing Olaf for a little while just to get used to it in case Kled gets banned. So I'm like at least solid with that champion. Plus he counters a lot of the champions on this list for my counter picks. So I might want to test that out a lot. But obviously between Kled and Olaf, they are not ability power based. So let's say my whole team picks AD champions. Well, who do I play now? And really, my options are kind of just Mordekaiser and Cassiopeia. So these would probably be my other two main first pick champions, but they're like more like on the off side of that. And then that's pretty much it. The other two that have like not many counters to are Urgot and Alawi. But I would much rather trust Alawi than Urgot because something tells me like Urgot's counters just counter him way harder than like Alawi's counters do. And I've also played a lot more Alawi than I played Urgot. So I'm going to be playing Alawi maybe as like my fifth choice in certain areas. So those would be kind of my five champions. I'd say try to have like a pool of five champions for that and make sure that some of them are ability power based. But you should really be sticking to like one, maybe two champions most of the time. And for me, that's going to have to be Kled, and that's going to have to be Olaf. So I think that's the way to think about it. You shouldn't be thinking about it like as, you know, I'm a great Vladimir player. I'm only going to play Vladimir top. If we look at these negative win rate matchups for top for Vladimir, he has 19 negative matchups. He loses to a lot of champions in the top lane. Or like, I'm a Jax main, I'm only ever going to play Jax. He has 18 negative matchups in the top lane. You are not going to, like, I love it because I like to play Jax. I am a very good Jax player, but at the same time, he can get crushed pretty easily by a lot of champions, and he does lose out. And even when it comes to counterpicking, he doesn't counterpick too many champions. And then you have like Tryndamere here. A lot of people will just one-trick Tryndamere, just play him constantly. He has 17 matchups he loses. So these are really bad first pick champion ideas. Just really bad. They just get countered by way too much. So I would never first pick any of these. Just like looking at this, it's definitely opened my eyes to a few things. Just like looking at this list. So anyway, I think like the only things like I could maybe edit about this list are like, let's say I do want to first pick Urgot, Kled, or Olaf, Alawi, Mordekaiser, or Cassiopeia. I should probably have like a who do I ban, like who to ban for them. So like for Kled, for instance, like Fiora is his hardest matchup, but I know how to play against Fiora with Kled. I'm not actually super worried about her, so I'd rather ban Camille. Just because Camille just feels like a little bit more of a pain for me when to play against her. And to be fair, Camille counters a lot of the champions that I do like to play anyway, so I might just make it a complete Camille ban for most of my champs. But I know like Kled for sure, I would want to ban Camille. So I think that's about it for this little video. I can also, you know, post this list for people if they want to look at it. I mean, granted, like all this stuff could be obtained from Lawlytics, but I just thought it would be interesting to put together, show you kind of how that works. And If you're new to top lane or you haven't been playing for very long, like this list has like way too many champions. I would not even go this far to have 14 champions. This is a lot. Um, and even I was saying like I don't know how I might fare with Vlad top here, but like I want to give it a shot just to see. And I do know how to play him. I've played him before. I played against him a lot. I see what he does. I think I could pick it up pretty simply. Um, but I think if you're gonna start doing top lane, you have to have Malphite in your champ pool, like no matter what. He just counters too many players, too many champions. You just kind of have to have him. Um, I also think you like almost must have Olaf as well. I think Malphite and Olaf you kind of like have to have in your champion pool if you're going to be rolling top lane, like somewhere in your champion pool. So I would say those two for sure. Um, and then after that, probably like an Alawi and a Mundo. Like those are pretty good counterpicky type champions. So, kind of think about things from that perspective. And then if you're gonna main something, just make sure that they have not many like not too many bad matchups, or even if they do, like for instance, if we do look at Kled, um, um, even though like well now he only has three bad matchups. Look at that. One, two, three. That's funny. Even though he like loses to these three champions, like it's only 40 like he still wins 47.4% of the games he plays against like these two champs, right? And then if I ban Camille, then I'm only having to worry about like maybe those two, which really isn't that big of a deal. So I think that's how I'm playing it. I just got some food here though. I think I've talked about this long enough. So peace out. Hope you enjoyed this.